How you doing today? Good to
Hey,
see
Chef.
you here. Hey, Chef. How are you?
I'm great. How's everybody doing here? Thumbs up?
I see a lot of
Excellent.
thumbs up. That's awesome. Chef, I'm going to follow your lead here.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, class, this week we are talking about sustainability. So there's lots to talk about. It's one of my favorite weeks in regards to breaking outside of the thought of what we think about sustainability. Sustainability is not just about protecting the earth, right? It is about protecting and helping each other as well, all right? As well as our community and businesses, alternative businesses within the community. Sustainability is a huge topic. So where to start first? That's what I always get excited about, that there's so many topics to talk about. But let me pull this up really quickly. Just give me 1 second. I am just a little, I rolled in here and I was so excited that I got a little bit discombobbled. So just give me 1 second, bear with me, class, while I get
While you're doing that, Chef, in last week's field trip that I did, I mentioned a few things about urban sustainability and economic sustainability. So we'll definitely hit on those things again today some. But I really want to encourage you all, when you're thinking about community sustainability, urban sustainability, supporting your local businesses is a huge part of that. So when you have the opportunity to get out and explore some of those businesses and potentially shop there, I think that's a great way to exercise one of these significant areas of sustainability.
Definitely. All right. Thank you, Chef. So I was just, like I said, I was a little bit distracted. Take a deep breath and let's go. Sometimes I get a little riled up and my head's all over the place. So when we think about sustainability, all right, let's start with the workplace, right? First, let's think about the kitchen. Let's think about a restaurant. When we shut down a restaurant at night, right? Last order's out, we've cleaned everything up, going home for the night. What's still running? Is there anything still running?
Yes.
Yeah. What are some of those things? What's still going on in the background? Refrigerator. I see that from Elise. Coolers, walk-ins. Yeah, freezers. Computers, heat, ice machine, anything with power. All right, so that's a lot of equipment, right? That's a lot of equipment that's running and humming in the background. All right. If we're somewhere where we're down in hot weather and we're turning the AC, are we letting that run all night? Are we setting it to a more a higher temp? So during the night, we're not running the AC all night. But if we turn that completely off, what does it take to start that up and cool the place down again? Right? What if you're in freezing cold temps? Are you going to kill the heat? No, you're going to lower that heat so it's nice, it's a little bit cooler, but you're not going to shut that off because it's going to take a lot more to revamp overnight. Okay? So, what about equipment? So now we're talking about equipment, right? What if now there's going to be a ton of two sides to the coins, right? We've talked about this from the beginning of week 1, right? Buying new equipment, far more energy efficient, right? We've got Energy Star approved. They're working with energy efficiency. But what's the counter side to that? Expensive, a lot of money, right? So the flip side, hey, I'm buying secondhand equipment, which can be great, huge cost saver, right? When you're starting up. However, if that thing is old and chugging along, you're burning a lot of energy, right? So your electric bills, right? Your operational costs, right? Just soaring, all right? So you got to start thinking about this, right? What about linens?
Expensive.
Well, what's expensive about linens? Washing them, right? However, the cleaning, right? Now, but what if storing is not going to be that bad? You're going to have a spot in your dry storage. You're going to have space as long as you have the adequate space, which you should, right? Some places are going to need linens, right? If you run a certain type of establishment, you're going to be expected to have linens on the table. So what do we think about? Where do we want to look at for what type of cleaning services, right? What do we think we want to be looking for cleaning services? Yeah, organic or green, right? Greener practices, cost efficient. Yeah. But we want to make sure that we're not leaching a ton of horrible detergents out in our water stream, right? Now, on the flip side, if we're not using linens, how many trees are we cutting down? How many times do you go to a restaurant and you're using up those napkins and because you're a messy eater and you're just tearing through those paper towels, right? Another side of the flip side, right? So maybe you can look at products that are recyclable, right? What about your to-go containers? Are you just taking food? Are you selling food to go? Most likely, right? Especially during these days and age where our entire industry has shifted. So yeah, recyclable. What are other eco-friendly? Yeah. All right. What about those little packages of silverware? Do we think that those have a lot of value to them, or are we just wasting a lot? Because what comes in those little so we've got a plastic container, right? Little plastic sheet, flimsy napkin, a spoon, a fork, a knife, salt and pepper. How often do you get stuff like this and you throw it out? Do you use all of those utensils? Not necessarily.
I love it with the new, we're all ordering a lot of food to go these days, and with the different providers, Uber Eats, Grubhub, all that. Often you can decline those utensils. I love that.
Exactly, chef. Decline the utensils. If you're ordering food for at home, say you don't need them. You've got ketchup, right? You don't need the extra packages of ketchup. You know what? This is not only helping to save the planet, it's also helping save your local restaurant. Or you, right? You want your customers to say, hey, you know what? I don't want that silverware. I'm good. I don't want the packages of ketchup. All right. Why? Because you have them. You have them on hand. Now, of course, if you're eating out, of course, you're going to want that. You want to be able to provide that. But we have to start thinking about this. Where is that going? What do landfills look like? What's our waste like? Mm-hmm. Where are we shipping all of our waste? Are we recycling everything properly? What about straws? Did anybody hear anything about the straw situation a couple years ago? It made a huge splash in the water. Nope. All right, now why do we think that straws are bad? Turtles. Well, what if I told everybody, sure, well, so are the little 6-packs that comes on your cans that you buy, right? It's not just the straws. It's not just the straws. And straws are actually really beneficial. If anybody who has a disabled friend or family member who has handicap issues, they will know that some people cannot actually drink from a cup. You need a straw. So we have to start thinking about how we attack problems and solutions. All right. So one of the solutions that came out of this idea of that straws were killing the turtles, right? But we've been hearing this about any plastic refuge that goes into the waters, right? Plastic bags. Animals eat plastic bags because it looks like little pieces of plankton. All right. Turtles get stuck in your 6-pack for your of soda pop or beer. Straws are no different, right? I'm glad that there's awareness, but we need to be thinking objectively and creatively about solutions. So one of the solutions that they came out with were those paper straws. Did anybody try one of those paper straws? Did anybody like them? Okay. I thought they were horrible. They got soggy. They didn't stay good, right? No. Yeah, but somebody was trying to think of a solution to sustainability. What came out next? Bamboo. Bamboo straw is pretty great. More durable, they don't get wet, they hold their shape, and bamboo grows back really quickly, right? It's a sustainable resource, far more than some of the other products that we were using to create those. Metal straws, also an interesting idea and concept, right? But potential risk there. Bend down, chip your tooth, right? Lawsuit. Cleanliness, unless you have the proper, yeah, exactly. Cleanliness was a big thing, right? Now, if you have your own metal straw, you're under control, that's it. But what they came up with was one company out in California said, let's create a solution. So what they found was, just like you're running through your normal silverware through the dishwashing, well, they created a little plastic container where the straws would stay upright, because that's important, right? But first they get stuck in a solution, right? Completely submerged in a solution, and then transferred into a little plastic cartridge where the straws would stand upright, so they got properly cleaned. It was HACCP approved, et cetera, et cetera. So things to think about, right? How about in the restrooms? What's going on in the restrooms?
I see a hand up. Hang on.
We got paper towels.
Yeah. Soap, dryers.
Dryers. Seat covers. Running water, tissue, right? Pros and cons to both the dryers and the paper towels, right? But you're darn sure we need paper towels in there, because we know proper procedure for using a restroom, right? While on duty, you need to grab a paper towel and use that paper towel to open the door, right? So what's a possible solution for there? Could we get motion censored? Could we have a foot button, right? A foot pedal that allows us to open that?
Or hanging your doors so that they open out.
So you can push it out. Yep, they both.
Yeah, or use your foot to open the door. Foot pedals, yeah.
Yeah. What about your water? Who's ever gone into a restroom and seen where you can turn the flush button one way for one drop of water, or two with the double drop of water? Have you guys seen that? Right? That's about water flow. There's a lot. How many gallons of water does it take to flush a toilet?
A lot.
Mm-hmm. Right? So sustainability starts becoming a really big thing. LED lights, solar panels, right? Let's make the quick jump here to people. How are we treating our employees? Are we giving them a sustainable wage? Are we providing insurance? All right, what do we think about that?
Angela says very important.
What about, I touched on this briefly, I think in week 1. What happened in COVID, during COVID, and during the initial stages of COVID and slaughterhouses? What were the working conditions? What still are the working conditions of a lot of our very important workers, right? That are taking care of, that are slaughtering these animals and packaging them and getting them ready for shipping them across or all around, not just the nation, but the world. Tight, closed conditions. Are we taking care of our people in the long run? Everybody that is supporting this industry. Not to mention the migrant workers, the farmers that are moving around. Right.
Chef, we did have a question in the chat about solar panels and whether or not they can be used for restaurants.
Can solar panels be used for restaurants?
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that there would be a reason why you can't. As I don't see any state regulation that would prohibit you putting a solar panel on top of your restaurant.
Yeah.
That I know of.
Yeah, I don't know of any either.
They're
I'm
not cheap.
asking about only using solar power to run a restaurant. That's some interesting technology that I'll have to look into and see if I can come up with some examples of restaurants that are in fact doing that.
I think it depends upon what type of establishment you are, how big of an establishment, because solar panels generate X amount of energy, right? So you'd have to find out how much energy. Where do you live? Also, if you're in a high sunshine state with long hours of sunlight, you're gonna have a lot better of a chance of taking a chunk out of your energy consumption compared to a a dreary like London or something where you don't get a ton of sun hours. But oftentimes you get tax breaks for using green efficient products. Remember, there's a thing called ROI, return on investment, right? In the long run, it will cost you less, even though your upfront cost might be higher. In the long run, you're going to get a bigger return on investment because your energy prices are going to drop. This is something really cool. I'm going to pull this up because this is really wild. Who's ever thought about using the heat of the earth to cook?
Geothermal cooking.
Bingo, chef. Right. Oftentimes used in Iceland, right? We've got geothermal energy from earth bubbling up, put those pots in, and there's just restaurants that are based on geothermal cooking. Now, that's not going to work everywhere, obviously. All right. Pina says in New Zealand as well. All right. So does that work everywhere? No. But when you have the option, might as well employ it, right? Could be a cool spin. Again, not going to work everywhere, but it's ways that we're thinking about sustainability. Man, low cost of gas there, right? No, you don't need a lot of gas supplying that for that cookery, right? Electric and gas goes down. Does anybody have any questions about this? Thoughts? Is anybody looking at this and thinking, wow, didn't realize how many fingers we have in every single component? We're not just producing food. Everybody feeling good about this? All right. Cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah, there's tons of, you've got solar ovens, right? Again, there's tons of ways of thinking about this. But Chef, did you want to talk a little bit any more about the other pillars of sustainability, or anything else regarding community, or I can, or whatever? I know I just got excited.
I love your excitement. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear from the class what ways you think you can contribute to sustainability, whether it's agricultural sustainability or economic sustainability. And why are we doing this? Why are we focusing on sustainability? How does it relate to the farm to table movement? Barbara, hang on and I will let you unmute yourself. I just have to find you on the screen. Oh, there you are. Okay. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
We were having a really serious discussion in the chat about windmills and wind power. And I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts on that was.
As far as I know, Chef, and you can weigh in, pros and cons to windmill power because of migration, bird migration, where they can't interrupt the bird flows, and there's been a lot of unnecessary death of flying birds. All right. That's kind of as far as I know of the negative. Otherwise, I think some people don't like the aesthetics of it. But wind and water and sun have always been ways to generate energy. You think about, a mill, right? In the water, using the current of water to push a wheel, right? That's using water energy, current. That's a huge new trend as well. Chef, anything about that you can think about regarding the windmills?
I mean, I think you brought up some good points. Lori did too, having grown up in the desert, you know. Lori, do you want to speak on that?
Sure.
Okay,
Am I unmuted?
you are. We can hear you.
Okay. I don't want to get political or anything, but I grew up in the desert and it was beautiful. And they started putting the windmills before they were tested many years ago. And there's a lot of people think Palm Springs, California. That's where I grew up, but I live in Boise. I've lived there for 20 some odd years. But they're trying to improve the windmills, which is good, but primarily most of them don't work and they break often. I have friends who have welding companies and they became very, very, very wealthy because of the windmills. And the hospital's emergency department had many, many men come out there because they've fallen off or whatever. And I was just typing, I have a geologist friend and she does all the work on the windmills in the land for sustainability. But she said that all around the windmills, and if you've ever been around them, some of them, where there's just oil everywhere. And a lot of the ecosystem is off now. And it's killed a lot of the animals in the desert. That's what I know. I don't know anything about the East Coast, or I've seen some in the Midwest in my travels. But I mean, there's a reason why the rich, uber rich people don't want them on the East Coast, because it doesn't really look very good. And I can understand the pro side of windmills, but I just grew up with that. I grew up with a beautiful, seeing the desert open with, in the springtime, with purple carpets of flowers, of the verbena flowers, beautiful. You hardly ever see them any longer because of the windmills.
Mhm.
It's very, very rare that you see them. So that's just that's just from growing up here in the desert. So I don't care for them, but if they perfect them, fine, but they just don't work.
So and I appreciate you sharing that, Lori.
Okay, thank
It
you.
looks like I see we've got a couple of hands up. And I also want to hear what you have to say, Mark. He said ask folks in Texas about windmills. So we'll get to you in just a second. Dawn, you can unmute yourself now, I think. Oh. Okay, there you go.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, mine wasn't about the windmills, although I am not a fan of them myself either, for a lot of the same reasons, not because I grew up there, but just a lot of the same reasons that Lori listed. But I wanted to just touch on what we can do in our community to make more awareness and all of that. And you saw what I wrote in the comments. So I just wanted to share that I'm working with the local garden. We're in a very small town and we only have one actual garden nursery here in town. You have to go to Bakersfield or something to get Lowe's and all of that. So she's been wanting to do a cooking class to promote healthy eating in town. She just wants people to eat healthy. And she said, if you can do something healthy, that's great. And then I took it one step different. And now we're basing it on the different kinds of food plants that they're selling, because when COVID hit, we had huge shortages. People couldn't get food that they could eat every day until that point. I started growing potatoes myself and started learning about a couple of different things I'd never tried before. And so we're kind of circling it back to teach people a little bit, and I'm incorporating that in each little lesson, but it's going to be like a every other month thing, and we're advertising it and trying to get the community involved. So, and then they can be there in the garden and it helps her business too.
That's awesome, Dawn. And you hit on a really good point. Education is just a key part of this, you know, and if we start teaching children when they're young about sustainability, and I think that's happening a lot in this country, it kind of creates a blueprint for them, if you will, about how they're going to move forward in their lives and how they take care of the earth and their community. So I love that you're doing that. And you know, we have an opportunity as chefs to share our knowledge and bring people together and educate them about ways to exercise sustainability. So, we're doing it right now. You all can take this information and share it with others, and, hopefully it will create the shifts that we need. Fabian, I see your hand is up.
Okay, wasn't letting me unmute there for a second. So I got a couple of things I'd like to hit on. First of all, let's get to the windmill thing. I understand all the negative things about the windmill, but do know that the eco people are farming birds to repopulate birds that may die. Is it a perfect fix? No, but I see where everybody's coming in there. Second thing is here in Ohio, when COVID started, people started getting hungry and it was hard to get food. I seen tables on the sidewalks everywhere with cans of food on it. And I just thought it was the best thing. I seen dog food and cat foods on other tables just so the community is helping the community. And last and finally, one of my favorite singers is John Bon Jovi, and I've never been there myself, but he has a restaurant in New Jersey that if you don't have a penny, it don't matter. You can go in there and say, hey, can I do some dishes for some food? And they'll be like, sure, what do you want? Filet mignon? And that's, I just wanted to hit on those couple of things.
Thank you, Fabian. All right, Mark, are you up for chiming in? And I do we need to kind of put some end caps on the windmill conversation. It is very important. I encourage y'all to take this to the walk-in and continue the conversation about it. And, we can certainly revisit this, but I do want to be mindful of the time today. Let's see. Mark, are you there? Okay, we'll come back to you. Whitley, what you got? Can you unmute yourself, Whitley? Okay, we'll come. Oh, there you go.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Well, moving along.
Moving
Chef,
along. Yeah.
Do you
I was
want to kind of?
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I was just chiming in talking about the USDA is now awarding, farms to do conservation efforts. They are releasing like $3 million to farmers that want to do some of the studies on their farm for conservation of like water and just different things like that. I just wanted to put that out there for anyone that might need it to, fund their farms if someone is running one. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Whitley.
Definitely. I think there's been a lot of excitement around this, which is great. Tons of topics, gray water, right? That's part of conserving water, taking rain runoff, right? You'll see that from gutters that drip down. You can water plants with that. It can be small scale, it can be large scale. You can start looking into farmers that support sustainability. And the last note that obviously there's a huge conversation about farmers and farming sustainability, but also this idea of sustainability within the community, right? So say I've got a restaurant and I just really, my bread just never comes out and my pie never comes out like Chef Lee's pie and bread shop down the road. You know what? So I'm going to go over to Chef Lee and say, hey, Chef, I love your bread. You get the best crust. I can't do it. Your pies are phenomenal. What can we work this out? how about I start buying bread and pies from you and I start putting those on my menu? All right. That's building the community. That's supporting your local community. I'm not ordering from another supplier from Cisco. I'm supporting my local comrade in the industry. This is another huge way to get not only make her name on the menu, and then everybody's coming, oh, where do you make this bread in house? No, that chef Lee's, her bakery's down the road. Go check her out, right? Or these eggs, those are scrumptious. Or these beautiful microgreens. Oh, that's from farmer Bob, I don't know, whoever it is, right? Looking around, finding what you can help and support your community, because that puts more money into your community. Start forming groups together to make that strength within the community. The stronger your community is, the stronger then your families are within that community, and then that branches out. It's like a ripple in the water. It keeps rippling, it keeps growing, it still keeps promoting. So this is really important.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and say that when I went to All City Sweets and talked with Brandy about her business, I asked her what it was like during COVID, how things affected her. And she said that although she's not a member of the Chamber of Commerce, that they went around to all the local food businesses and provided masks and hand sanitizer and gloves to the businesses so that they could continue to operate in a safe manner. So, the Chamber of Commerce is another big part of the community that you can tap into. And then also, like you were saying, Chef, resource or sourcing things from other people in the community fosters a real network. And if you don't have a restaurant association in your area and you want to start one, I think that's a fantastic idea. In fact, I'm working with a former student and we're looking at creating sort of a chef's forum here in this area so that we can build that sense of community. So lots of ways that you can encourage sustainability in your community, not just related to the earth, but certainly from a holistic perspective.
Definitely. All right. Shall we hop into this week's
Let's
recipe?
do it. Let's
All
do
right.
it. All right.
You want me to pull up, Chef?
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to
Cool.
things moved out of the way here. So we've got our prep list for this week, and I don't know how many of you are clicking on this and getting that additional information, but I'd certainly encourage you to. The recipes are in there, and then we're going to be adding articles as we go on. There's some in some of the weeks, but we'll be adding more so that there's more, just kind of some supplemental information for you in here about the different topics. So this week you're doing 2 chicken and rice dishes. Now, how many of you have, and you can throw this in the chat if you like, how many of you have a go-to chicken and rice dish? You may have grown up eating it, you may cook it now. It's a comfort food, right? And it exists around the globe. They're all different types of chicken and rice dishes. So you'll be making 2 of those this week. The first one is the arroz con pollo, and then the second one is etouffee. Now, Chef Catherine wanted me to talk about the etouffee because I'm from the South. So I'm going to go over these recipes with you, and we'll start with that one. I put here in the prep list, if you want to make a seafood etouffee, that's fine. You're going to need to take a little bit of a different approach, and it does note this approach that you'll need to take in the recipe. So I want to come back out of the screen share for a second and ask some questions to you all. How many of you are pretty proficient at preparing a roux for a bechamel? You just raise your hands. Okay, I see lots of hands up. When I was growing up, we called it white sauce. We didn't know what bechamel was, right? Later I learned what that was. And when you make a bechamel, you start out with you're making a blonde roux. So you've got equal ratio of fat to flour, right? So in making your brown roux for the etouffee, you're going to start off with that same ratio, 1-to-1, fat to flour. But in this recipe, you're going to be using some sort of oil. or another type of fat, not butter, because butter is going to potentially burn with this recipe. But if you use something like oil, or I think you can even use, I don't know, chef, bacon grease, would that be yeah, anything that has a higher smoke point is going to be okay.
Clarified butter.
Clarified butter will work, yeah. Yeah, Amber said bacon grease, lard will work for sure. So you're gonna start your roux off as you would a blonde roux. But let me tell you, it's gonna take some time. This is not a quick, wait for the toast smell sort of roux. I see a couple of hands up here and I'll call on y'all in just a second. But when you're making a brown roux, what you wanna do is melt your fat, or put your oil. You're not melting it because it's not butter. Put your fat in the pan and then add your flour and start whisking it. And you're going to really have to wait for it to turn brown. You want to make sure your heat is on medium, or maybe even medium low, and whisk it and just keep working with it. Keep stirring it until you achieve a rich chocolate color. That's what you're looking for. So think about a Hershey's bar, right? You may think that you're not doing it right. You may think that, you missed a step, but just trust me, it's going to take some time. If you start to see little dark flecks in it, then your roux is starting to burn. So you want to be mindful of that. Now, when you make this recipe, you're going to first brown your chicken thighs. You season them and brown them in the pan. So you are going to have a little bit of residual, some fronds in the pan from doing that. So don't mistake those for these flecks that I'm talking about. We'll get to that in just a second, Lee. But at any rate, be patient with your brown roux. If you get into it and you're having trouble, send me a message. Send one of us a message and say, hey, am I doing this right? Send a picture if you want, so we can give you some feedback on it. As far as the rest of the recipe goes, we're chef.
I was just gonna say, remember, when you start cooking that roux, right, you get that sandy texture first, right? But this, remember, the more you cook that roux, the less thickening power it has, right? You're gonna be cooking that out. You're gonna see that it thins out. It's gonna get thin. It's gonna go from that sandy stage. It's gonna start melting down, transforming, and then it's gonna get really thin and glossy, all right, and deep hued, all right? Yeah, I had to learn this the hard way.
Yeah, I remember the first time I made gumbo. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is taking forever. I called my friend who's from Louisiana, and she was like, yeah, you're doing it right. Just be patient. One thing I'll encourage y'all to do is, if you're interested in making etouffee, more than once, make a big batch of this brown roux. You can take it and put it in a jar and put it in the refrigerator and use it later. Because it is a labor intensive process. And so get ahead of the game if you think, you're going to be executing more types of Creole or Cajun cuisine that call for the brown roux. I saw a question here. How long does it last in the fridge? Well, you've got to remember it's got fat in it. So that fat's going to help preserve it. And I would think you could keep it, for a month, maybe 6 weeks, longer.
You can also freeze it.
Yeah. Maybe freeze it in smaller portions.
Definitely small portions for what you would do, what you want to execute.
Yeah. The Trinity is the foundation. We've got the roux, that's part of the foundation of this etouffee recipe. The next foundational piece to the recipe is the Trinity, and that's onion, celery, and green bell pepper. And you'll find that a lot in Cajun and Creole cooking. So just know that it's important that you use that particular mix of vegetables. And once your roux achieves that brown glossy state that you're looking for, that's when you want to add your Trinity. You don't want to do it before. And those flavors are going to meld together and really create that this very distinctive flavor profile of these Cajun and Creole dishes. Yellow or white onion, I think you can use either. You know me, I like to use a what, chef?
I'm not sure I know how to pronounce that one.
I think you do.
Well,
Vidalia?
Was it Vidalia?
Vidalia. That's my go-to. Can we describe the flavor? Cajun, Creole. I mean, the celery is very prominent. I would say the onion kind of comes in underneath it all, and the bell pepper, I don't know, green bell peppers have a very distinctive flavor. So it's, I don't
Talking
know.
about that trinity, you've got sweetness coming in from the onion, you've got a little bit of that bitter green note coming in from the bell pepper, right? So you've got that combination coming in from that trinity that you're going to see. Remember, we're talking about those basics, right? Not just the trinity, but we're going to hop into the arroz con pollo, which also has the sofrito, right? We're talking about the base flavors. What would that be in French cooking? What would it be?
Right. That's a great question.
What is it?
Let's see in the chat.
Sofrito, Trinity, Holy Trinity, and what is it in French cuisine?
And what do you call that, Whitley?
You're right on.
Yep.
Mirepoix.
Mirepoix. That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Bingo.
It
Right?
goes in
What do-
so, yeah. If you're making a soup, what do you put in it? Carrots, onion, celery. I mean, it goes in most soups. It's, certainly all the, the classic French type soups and stews. So
What do we learn in cuisines of the world? What is it for Chinese cookery? GGS. What does that stand for?
I see some.
Garlic, ginger, scallion. Yeah, Katie.
Yeah.
Bingo.
That's
All right. So we're talking about base flavors. These are building blocks and foundations of so many dishes within cuisine. So this is what we want to thinking about, right? That unification, right?
So I'll go back to the recipes now and we'll go through those a little more closely. So like I said, you're going to combine these, you're going to combine the spices, put them all over your chicken, and then, make sure they're thoroughly coated. You do want to use bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs in this recipe. That's going to really give you the depth of flavor that you're looking for. It's got that added chicken fat that's also, so the bone, the fat, all that is adding to the flavor depth of your dish. This combination of spices here, the thyme, the cayenne, the garlic, onions, paprika, etc., those are key to the sort of flavor profile that you want to achieve with etouffee. So make sure that you're following that part of the recipe very closely, and each of the other steps as you go along. There is a note here in the recipe that if you're using cut boneless chicken, sausage, shellfish, or another boneless protein, start at step 5. So, just keep that in mind. If you want to make a shrimp etouffee or, something with chicken and sausage, just make sure that you're going through the recipe as it indicates. But you're going to get a really nice sear on your chicken on both sides, and then take that out. And that's when you're going to whisk in your flour to make your brown roux. As I said, watch for those flecks that are very distinctively different from the fronds. Y'all know what those look like, right? You brown your meat in the pan and you've got these little bits that stick to the bottom of the pan. That's what your fronds are. One thing I'll point out here is that when you're making your spice mixture and you put that on your chicken, you have to be careful to really watch your heat here. You do want to sear it on a high heat, but not so high that those spices are going to burn, because that can also affect the flavor outcome that you get with your final product. So after you get that nice, rich Hershey bar color roux, then you're going to add your mirepoix, and then you're going to add the other ingredients, the garlic, the Worcestershire, hot sauce, and stock. Stir all those until they combine, and then you're going to put your chicken back in there and braise it. You want to have your heat at a simmer, so pretty low heat, and then cook it until the chicken's done, right? How do we know it's done? What's the temperature for, internal temperature for chicken when it's done?
165 coming in the chat.
165, awesome. Then you're going to take your chicken out of the pan, reduce your heat so that that sauce reduces. You don't want to burn it, so be careful. You know, there are a lot of steps in these recipes are requiring you to pay very close attention to your heat. So be mindful of that. You're going to take that chicken out, you're going to remove it from the bone and then put it back into your sauce, and then you'll serve it over white rice. So, you know, we're looking here at how well you follow the steps of the recipe and execute the recipe as a whole. We're looking at that rice and how well it's cooked. The color on your roux. Chef, can you pull up the photo requirements for that one?
Yes, 1 second.
Okay. How many of y'all are excited about making this? I see a lot of hands up. Let's see in the chat. We've got a question about something else you can sub for Worcestershire. Is it because you don't care for it, Lee?
Fish allergy.
Okay, okay. There are vegan Worcestershires you can find. I don't know if you can find them in your area, but I would say, I don't know, Chef, what do you think about that? Soy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a little soy
Mhm.
and some onion powder. Actually, touch more onion powder.
Yeah.
But I think Lee, you got that vegan fish sauce. You could do a dash of that with a little soy sauce, but
Yeah.
just a teeny little bit of the fish sauce, the vegan fish sauce. But I can't remember what exactly it was composed of. But that'll do the trick. Here are the photo requirements for
Okay,
the
for the etouffee. So you all are doing, you know, I can't speak for your class, Chef, but my class, you know, you guys are doing a great job with your photo ID and making sure that you're in full uniform from head to toe. You've got your hair pulled back or a hat on, chef's coat, your apron. So I want to commend you on that. And then, you know, with the sanitation photos, I have seen a couple of students that are submitting or have test strips that are really dark. I want y'all to make sure that you're being careful about your sanitizing solution, because if that strip is too dark, it's telling you that that solution is somewhat caustic and it can potentially burn your hands. So please be mindful that you want that to read right there in the middle of that test tube indicator. But you're going to show your close-up of your knife cut. So the carrots, not carrots, here I go with mirepoix, the celery, onion, and green bell pepper. Really practice your knife skills here with those. Remove the rib from the green bell pepper and see if you can get some really uniform small dice on those. Same with your carrot, you know, and the more you practice these things and practice these knife cuts that require some real fine motor skills, you're going to build some muscle memory. I think I mentioned that last week. So just keep practicing them, and you know, that's the only way you're going to become more consistent with those cuts. So if we look at the rest of the photo requirements here, you've got your browned chicken or protein, whatever protein you're using, your flour added to the fat, that chocolate brown stage, the Trinity added, the other ingredients added, your garlic, Worcestershire, etc., and then your protein back in, the sauce simmering, and protein removed and sauce reducing, and then your finished dish showing that proper internal temperature. So any questions about that you all want to put in the chat? Amber, you say you want to cut faster. You will. Just keep practicing. You know, I practice my knife cuts even with 25 years of experience in the business. I still practice my knife cuts, you know, because if you don't use them all the time, you get a little bit rusty. So you have to keep practicing. All right. Any questions that you all have that you want to put in the chat about the, let's see, Anita, if we use shrimp, do we need the 5th photo requirement? No.
I would highly suggest doing a combo, doing your chicken and making it you know, do that etouffee up. Get some chicken in there, get some shrimp in there. You got crawfish. I don't know if it's season or if it's even available. You tell me, Southerners. I don't think it is a season, but I would say do it up. You're going to get a lot more flavor in your etouffee as well, because remember, when you're searing your protein, right? All that fat from the chicken skin is going into the roux as well. You've got the fond. You're going to have more of a finished flavor profile.
All right. Barbara asked, when removing the bones for both recipes, aren't there little bones for the thighs? And how did we deal with that? Your thigh won't have the little bones like a chicken leg does. You've got two pretty significant, they're good sized bones in that thigh. So
also, you don't need to debone. You really, I mean, if you want to practice, but it's going to hold, you don't have to debone.
well, I think she's talking about the etouffee.
Oh, I was talking about the arroz con pollo. Sorry.
Yeah, that one, the arroz con pollo, you don't need to remove from the bone. Can boneless chicken be used?
But you're going to be removing you're not cutting that. You're going to be pulling, your chicken is cooked already at this point, and you're pulling the chicken off of the bone and then putting it in, return to the pan.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be having your gloves on, and you would feel if there were bones in there as you're pulling your meat off the bone.
Mm-hmm. Richard has a good point. If you cook it right and up to the proper temperature, it'll just fall off the bone. And Alita asked if boneless chicken can be used. I really don't want to see boneless chicken. Oftentimes, you've got I know you can buy boneless chicken thighs. I have a hard time finding any boneless chicken thighs that have the skin on. And you really want the skin on in these recipes.
You're losing flavor too, right? And you're paying more.
That's right.
So you're losing flavor and paying more.
All right, I'm going to go back to the other recipe so we can go through that one.
Let's just roll. Yeah, let's roll into, do you want me to take it, or do you want to go with it, Chef?
I pulled that one up. That'd be great.
All right.
For the optional sausages at whole or ground, the recipe calls for chorizo, Spanish chorizo, which is going to be kind of hard for you to find. So if you can find a Mexican chorizo that's going to be in a casing, you can take it out and use it ground. You can also use like a kielbasa, something like that. Really, any kind of sausage, I think, would work in this recipe.
All right. So it's bone in for both of these recipes. That's where you're going to get flavor. Bone in, skin on for both of them. That's where you're developing flavor. That's where you're going to get beautiful flavor coming out of that chicken skin, leaching into the pan, leaching in to get your flavor profile. Also, when you're braising, right, it's going to cook a lot better when you've got the bones in. You're going to have more flavor coming out. You're going to have more viscosity and more body letting into your sauce as well. And just in general, more flavor profile. Using a boneless thigh, it's great for throwing that on a grill, right? Throw that on a grill. You're going to have some great success, or making some chicken skewers. But when you're braising, using boneless chicken it's not efficient, and you don't get the best end results. All right. So let us take a look at the arroz con pollo. Again, we spoke about the sofrito, right? The sofrito, which is similar to your, which is pulling in like the Trinity, like the Mirepoix. That's going to be that flavor profile. So we're taking those chicken thighs, seasoning them up, right? Salt and pepper and a little bit of paprika. Sear those off, right? Get some nice development of browning. We want to get more brown. This could take a little more browning, to be honest, if you're asking me. I don't think that this has enough browning. I would not pull my chicken out of the pan if it looked like that. I want to get more browning on there. That I can still see a lot of texture on that chicken skin. That's not a nicely browned chicken thigh, in my opinion. So aim for more color than that. You want to get beautiful golden brown beautifulness, because who wants rubbery skin? Nobody wants rubbery skin. That's going to be rubbery and chewy, right? And fatty. The whole point of searing is to pull some of that extra fat out and get a nice crisp skin. All right. Get that out and get that nice and golden brown. All right. Maillard reaction. That's what we're looking for. Like what we talked about in this week 3 as well. Then, as Chef Lee was saying, Spanish style chorizo, smoked sausage, or ham, small dice, right? All of those are optional if you do not eat pork. All right. If you do eat pork, I would highly suggest throwing that in. If you cannot find it, remember, Spanish style chorizo does have a slightly different flavor profile than Mexican chorizo. Mexican chorizo is raw. Spanish chorizo is dried and cured. All right. Mexican chorizo has cumin flavors. Spanish style is more paprika based. All right. Same stuff we all learned about in C132. If you can find an alternative, a smoked sausage, that's beef or chicken based, and you don't eat pork, throw that in. All right. Get that going in there. All right. Moving in, then you're going to turn down that heat, add the chorizo or any other ham or smoked sausage products. That's when we're going into the sofrito. All right. Your onion, green red bell pepper, sweat that down, right? Sweating does not mean adding color. Sweating means pulling off some of that liquid, right? Then you're going to add your garlic and tomato paste. Why do we add tomato paste? Why do we cook tomato paste? What is cooking? Richness, color, flavor. What else does it do? All of those are great answers. Got binder to thicken. Cuts the acidity. It brings out sweetness, right? Otherwise, raw tomato paste is super acidic, right? So this mellows it out, brings depth of flavor. Excellent. Throwing in that garlic as well. Then you're going to add your canned diced tomatoes and your stock. Bring that to a simmer. Stir in your rice. Add your chicken skin side up, right? Because that's going to be presentation side up. If you do use fresh tomatoes, you're going to want to add a little bit more juice, right? Because what happens in a canned diced tomato? You get a lot of liquid in there. So you're going to want to add just a little bit more stock, maybe a tablespoon. All right. Because you don't want to have dry rice. Turn that heat down low, cover it, and simmer until the chicken is thoroughly cooked, right? About 20-25 minutes. You want to make sure those grains of rice are fully cooked. So check it. It's okay to check. That's what you want to do. Remember, cooking is not always blind cooking. Check it. If it's looking dry, add a little more stock. If it's really wet, maybe you should make sure you're double checking your ratios and make sure you're measuring correctly, right? Maybe you need to cook it a little bit longer. Maybe you need to dry it out a little bit. Remove the lid, right? Because if we have a lid on, it's just staying in the pot, right? If it's really wet and soupy, take that lid off. Let some of that extra moisture evaporate and steam off. All right. Remove from the heat, let it stand for 5 minutes, right? Just like any other rice dish. And as mentioned, you can pull that chicken off if you want, but not required. And then, of course, as mentioned, turkey versions are turkey or chicken versions are totally acceptable for your pork products.
One thing I'll add, Chef, is if you want to use tomatoes, I highly recommend that you do a tomato concasse. I think that's going to help. It's going to remove that viscous part of the tomato, and that you don't want that in there because it's going to add more liquid and could potentially affect the way your rice cooks up. And I don't think that you want those skins in your arroz con pollo either. Do y'all know, is everybody clear on tomato concasse? I don't know if y'all done that in another course or not. And Anita, yes, you can use chicken legs, that's fine. Okay, so tomato concasse, peeled, seeded, and diced. So what you're going to do is take your tomato, and ideally you're using a bigger tomato, not a little grape tomato, but you're going to cut an X in the bottom of the tomato, drop it in boiling water for just a very short period of time, take it out, shock it, and then the skin will very easily pull off. And then you're going to cut it open, take out that viscous part with the seeds, and then dice it.
All right. All right. We are at our at 5 o'clock. We are going to cut this one and then hop into study hall. As long as all questions have been answered for this.
I do see some hands up. Barbara, can you just put in the chat if it's a question that can wait until the hallway? Is that cool?
That's from before. All right, cool. We'll drop that.
Okay, all right.
Awesome class.
Thank you, everyone.
And we'll see you in a few.
See you in the hallway.
Bye.